Kenya, and I'm delighted to be here today. Without much ado, I would like to invite the speaker, who is Fidelis Tamangani. He's a Senior Partnership Account Manager, Infrastructure of Water.org. He's a financial systems analyst with over 16 years of professional experience in Eastern and Southern Africa. He has worked directly with financial institutions in increasing their capacity to provide products and services to rural smallholder farmers and water utilities access to finance. He has a range of finance experience in the banking sector, agricultural sector, and water and sanitation sector. Kindly help me welcome Fidelis. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. The Chair of WASPA, CEO of WSPs, distinguished guests, all protocols observed. So my name is Fidelis, and I'm a Senior Manager for Infrastructure Projects at Water.org. So I'm going to talk about creating water and sanitation investment opportunities. So Water.org, we are a 32-year-old organization. We are based in the US. We are actually in 11 countries, including Kenya, so I'll talk about the areas where we are. But just to introduce ourselves, we also subscribe to SDG 6, where we look at safe water and sanitation for all. And what we do is we break down the financial barriers between people and safe sanitation, safe water and sanitation. And we do this in 3 ways. So I'm going to talk about the 3 ways that we link with people, with water utilities, with SMEs, and other donors. So the first one is market creation. So when we talk of market creation, we are looking at the financial institutions. We have realized that a lot of financial institutions do not have the experience to finance the wash sector. So we identify those banks that have an affiliation to financing water and sanitation, because this conference is basing on sanitation. So once we have done that, we also look at water utilities, because we know they do projects in sanitation extension. So after creating that market, we then do facilitation. So with facilitation, we are looking at technical assistance funding. So we identify the utilities that have projects and that would want to create these projects. We have some grants funds, and here, if you look at my slide, the top one, which is written philanthropy, this is where we get our grants, and this is the Water.org NGO arm of those 3 organizations. So I'll talk about those 3 organizations. So once we have done that, we provide those grants. Water companies can hire consultants who then help them to develop technical designs, cash flows, as well as SER reports. With the banks, we also train them. So what we do is we have a grant that we give to the banks. They can hire consultants, and then these consultants will now teach the branch managers of those banks on how to finance WASH. So WASH will include water utility projects, will include financing households. So if you want to get yourself a tank, or if you want to have a septic tank, you can actually go to those banks that we train. And then the participation, because we don't want these water companies to do these projects on their own, we are also involved in monitoring those projects. So Water.org is the philanthropy side of these 3 organizations, which is 3 in 1, and we provide grants funding. Then the second one, so I'll skip down to water equity, which is the investment arm. So, when banks are lending to the WASH, some of them will say we don't have adequate funding. So water equity is the arm that has funds that we give to commercial banks as debt capital. So if you go to these banks, I'll mention them later on, you can actually apply for funding. So if you're a water utility, you can apply for a loan. If you're a household, you can go to the same bank, you apply for the loan. If you're an SME, I can see SMEs here, Robert from SBS, who do tanks, you can actually go to a bank and get those, apply for a loan. If you're doing pipe, manufacturing, meters, etc., you can also apply for those loans. And then lastly now, the project development. So this is our newer part, our newer baby of the organization. And here we're looking at project development. So this includes contractors. So if you're a contractor and you would want to participate in a project and you may not have funds, you can actually come to us. We can offer you debt capital for you to do that. So I'll just give you a global perspective of water.org, what we have done so far. So like I said, we work with the private sector, we work with the government, and directly we're looking at banks, commercial banks that are regional. For example, in Kenya, we're looking at Equity Bank. So Equity Bank, you will see you have Equity Bank in Kenya, you have Equity in Tanzania, you have Equity in Uganda, and I think they recently opened in DRC and Rwanda. So those are the banks that we look at, because what we want is once we work with a regional bank, it's easy for us to scale to other countries. We also work with microfinance institutions, because we believe the microfinance institutions, they provide loans for households. We are talking of 300, 500 US dollars. And then we work with now the public and private, urban and rural water companies. So here we're looking at the sewerage systems. If you want to expand, you can actually come to those banks that we're working with. And then lastly now the SMEs, where we engage in water and sanitation products as well as services. So far we have mobilized about $5.6 billion since the organization was started. We are in 11 countries. We have 157 partners that we're working with, and we have reached 67.5 million people with access to water and sanitation services. And then in Africa, I talked about the 5 countries where we are. We are in Kenya, we are in Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and DRC. And for Africa alone, we have managed to mobilize about $745 million. We have 15 active partners, and we have reached 7.7 million people with access to safe water and sanitation. So now I'll dive into the model that we use. So in the middle, you'll see the financial institutions. So when we look at banks, we identify those banks that are interested in financing WASH. And then with the grants money that we have, we then provide technical assistance. So we hire a consultant who will go to this bank, train them about what is a water utility, how do they do their projects, and how do they generate their funds. Once they do that, then the financial institutions, now they know what WASH is. They can then extend commercial loans. And you can see the end borrowers here, water service providers, SMEs, and then of course households. Now, where the banks may not have funds that they have set aside for WASH financing, this is where now our sister organization comes in, Water Equity. They can give those banks loan capital, which they can then extend to the WSPs, to the SMEs, and to the household. So that's how the model works. And then for the service providers and SMEs, so we're actually working with a couple of utilities here in Kenya, and we provide technical assistance. So from our end, what we'll do is when we approach a utility and they tell us about the project that they want to do, we will first of all look at the concept, and when we see that it is viable, then we ask them to tell us now the consultancy that they would want. So we will hire the consultant ourselves. then we would assign that consultant to go and work with that utility and help them to do the designs. So after the designs are done, you can look at upgrade or expansion of infrastructure. So if it's pipes, if it's sewer treatment, wastewater treatment plants, those are the infrastructure those utilities can do. Suppliers, we're looking at those who manufacture products. So you can also come, we can work with you so that you also come up with your cash flows and your designs. Then you can now get these loans from the commercial banks that we are linked with. Same with service providers. If you're extending, maybe it's the billing system, we can also work with you. So this is how we provide our technical assistance funding. The partners banks that we have, we're working with, in Kenya, we have NCBA, Co Bank, we have Equity, we have Family Bank, and then AMFI, Association of Microfinance Institutions, we have Kenya Women. Then in Uganda, we have Finance Trust Bank, AMFIU, so that's AMFI Uganda. And then, of course, Tanzania, we have Tanzania Commercial Bank, the CRDB, then we also have microfinance institutions in Tanzania. Opportunity Bank, this is also in Uganda. So these are banks where we have provided consultants, we have trained those staff, and now they know how to finance WASH. So if you go to these banks, you'll see that they have a portfolio specific for WASH financing. WSPs, you can go there, SMEs, and then households. You can also go and borrow. Yeah, this is my last slide. So for infrastructure, that is water and sanitation, so we have partnerships in Kenya. We have Water Sector Trust Fund. I think what our CEO talked about the AOD program. We are also working with them to support in the preparation of bankable project proposals, which can then be financed by various commercial banks. We have also partnered with Family Bank Limited, where we worked with them to develop proposals for Embu and Naivasha. And we're hoping very soon that those two utilities will get financing from those, from Family Bank. And then lastly, we have another partnership in Tanzania, National Water Fund. So this is a similar organization to the Water Sector Trust Fund in Kenya. And we're also doing the same thing, partnering with them to develop proposals for 5 utilities. And we give them consultants to help those utilities to come up with those designs. And then lastly,